Module 3. Hi, this is Joe Cerrone, and I'm going to go through Module 3 for the AutoCAD online course. If we take a look at Module 3, we're going to cover drawing productivities, tool for productivity, and we'll go over using drafting settings, using tracking in direct distance, using display control, creating tile viewports, layers, undo and redo. Drafting settings are the settings like snap, grid. They also enhance your drawings, and so what drafting settings will do is they'll allow you to create your drawings better. They don't actually draw the objects, but they make your drawings more accurate. And so we have a number of different settings that are down at the bottom of the screen. If I start a new drawing, well, let's do this. Let's go back here and let's jump into let's take a look at a drawing that requires object snaps in some of these polar settings. And so what we'll do is we'll jump ahead and then we'll backtrack to this object snap exercise. And if we click on osnap.dwg and we'll say open, we'll open that drawing in our AutoCAD. Since the screen background is white and my colors are kind of light, I'm going to highlight them and change the color of that layer to dark blue so we can see that better. Now hit escape. So here's a basic construction drawing for doing object snaps. And down here at the bottom we have our settings. You'll notice that I have enabled or disabled the use icons so that I can see the words on here. And if we look through the textbook, we'll talk a little bit about the interface and then we'll go through and do this exercise. So to start off with, to get our interface set up like mine, you should be in drafting and annotation, and we'll select show menu bar. And that'll give us access to these commands up here across the top as well. Down here at the bottom we have a number of these different settings. We have snap, grid, ortho, polar, object snap, and a number of other ones. We'll start off by looking at what the snap command is and what the snap command does. Snap, if I right click on this, I can go into the settings for that, and this is the drafting settings. And the drafting settings will allow us to create a grid on the drawing paper, and what the snap will do is it will snap to that grid. And so we can set up a grid for 1/4 of an inch and snap for 1/4 of an inch, and we'll enable those by selecting these check marks and saying OK. And then we'll see that grid on the screen, and as we draw lines, our cursor will snap within 1/4 inch increments, 1.25, 1.5, 1.75. I'm going to hit escape to cancel out of that, and I'm going to turn off the grid. OSNAPs are a smarter way of using snaps, and what they'll do is they will acquire different geometries. And so let's take a look at this OSNAP button here. I'll enable that, and if I right click on that and I go to the OSNAP settings, we can take a look at the object snaps for this. Right now what it's set to do is when I'm in a draw command and I get near an endpoint, I'll get a little bit of a square that will highlight. When I'm near a midpoint, I'll get a triangle. When I'm near the center, I'll get a circle. When I'm near a node or a point, I'll get a node. When I'm near a quadrant, I'll get a diamond. And so I'm going to turn on these different OSNAPs, and I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to take a look at my drawing. And so my drawing's right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line from the center to the midpoint. I'll come back to the drawing here, and I'm going to enable a different layer. I'm going to enable the hidden layer, and I think I'm going to make a darker color for that too by clicking on this yellow square, and let's make that purple. We'll say OK. So I'm on my hidden layer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line. My object snaps are set. If I want to see what my object snaps are, I can right click on it, and all the object snaps that are on are depressed or are light blue. And so I'll come back here and I will hover. I will acquire the center point. I will click. I'll bring the cursor over to this midpoint and I'll click. I'll hit escape, and now I've drawn the first exercise. The next one is tangent and midpoint. So I'm going to go from a tangency point here to a midpoint here. Another way to get object snaps is by selecting the line and holding Shift right mouse click. And so Shift right mouse click will give me a pop-up of the available object snaps. And I'll choose tangent, then I'll glide over here, click, and then I'll bring this over here, and I'm going to acquire the midpoint. And then I'll hit escape. The next exercise is going to be from the, let's take a look at it. I had a feeling it wasn't on there. So I have an extra exercise on here, so I'll have to do that one on the fly. What we'll do is we'll say endpoint, quadrant, quadrant, endpoint. And so I'll say line, I'll say endpoint, I'll bring it over here, quadrant, bring it over here, quadrant, and I'll bring it over here, endpoint. Quadrants are like the 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 9 o'clock positions on a circle. Okay, let's take a look at this one here. This will be a construction with tangencies, and so we'll say line, shift right mouse click, I'll say tangent, from here to shift right mouse click tangent. Notice that it wanted to give it quadrant, but I overrode it with tangent. Shift right mouse click is stronger than the running, what they call running object snaps. And so if it's giving me something I don't want, I can cycle through that with the shift right mouse click. Or I can come into my OSNAPs, I can right click, and I can go to settings, and I can just turn them all off. Clear all, and just give me tangency. So now tangent is the only one that will acquire, and when I go through and do this next construction, I can get tangent and tangent, right mouse click enter, right mouse click repeat line, tangent, tangent. Over here on this one we're going to have a construction that's going to be a 3-point circle that's going to be tangent, tangent, tangent. And so what we'll do is we'll select circle, 3-point, and we have tangent, tangent, and tangent. This exercise is going to be a line from midpoint, midpoint to midpoint. So what I'll do is I'll right click on my OSNAP and I'll turn on the midpoint here. Line, midpoint, 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 midpoint. Hit escape. This exercise right here is a little bit tricky because it uses a parent intersection. And so in our object snap settings, we need to enable extension, intersection, and a parent intersection. We'll say OK. And then I'll say line. And what I have to do is I have to actually kind of track out with these and get that apparent intersection. And same with this. I'm going to track that out, and I'm going to track that out until it gets to the apparent intersection, and I'll click, and I'll hit escape. And so this is the OSNAP exercise. We'll take a look at our instructions here, and what we will do is we will save this exercise as our initials -OSNAP and put it in the Dropbox. So I'll come back here to my CAD drawing. I'll say File, Save As, and I'll put this on my desktop, and I'll change the name here from OSNAP to JC-OSNAP. And that's a quick rundown on using object snaps.